Hey, how's it going? Welcome to the podcast, everyone. Today's episode is going to be an interesting one. We're talking about global warming.
That's right, and it's a hot topic these days, but also a controversial one. Some people think global warming is a hoax, while others say it's one of the biggest challenges we face.
Yeah, and it's fascinating that despite all the evidence supporting global warming, there are still people who believe it doesn't exist. What do you think about that?
It's surprising, but there's definitely this fringe group that's convinced global warming is exaggerated. It raises a lot of questions about the data and who's interpreting it.
Exactly. It's like, how do we explain things like the rapid melting of the polar ice caps or the rise in global temperatures?
Well, some argue that there are natural cycles in the Earth's climate, warming and cooling, and these cycles could explain what we're seeing, but I'm not sure that fully accounts for the data.
Right. And I think we can all agree that something's happening to our planet. But there's also the question of how to interpret that data and who's shaping the conversation. What about you? Do you think politicians are using this climate crisis for their own gain?
That's an interesting point. Some say it's all just a political tool, and then you have the whole issue of funding unnecessary initiatives. Like, is the push for conservation and renewable energy actually helping, or is it just a way to get more control over resources?
That's a tricky one. I do see the value in renewable energy and conservation, but at the same time, there's a lot of debate about whether these initiatives are being driven by real environmental concern or if there are other motives at play.
Definitely, it makes you think about the bigger picture, like how does all this relate to our dependence on foreign oil? If we could reduce that, wouldn't that also weaken autocratic regimes that use those oil revenues for less than savory purposes?
It's a compelling argument. But on the flip side, there's also the question of whether this fight against global warming could be seen as scaremongering. Are we being manipulated into believing there's a crisis when maybe it's not as bad as they say?
That's the classic debate, right? Whether we're being misled by the media and politicians or whether they're just trying to get us to take action before it's too late. It's hard to know who to trust sometimes.
Totally. But I think at the end of the day, the biggest issue is that we need to focus on real solutions. Whether it's climate change or oil dependence, finding a balance is key.
And being able to admit when we don't have all the answers. You have to concede that maybe, just maybe, there's truth on both sides. But honestly, it all comes down to how we choose to respond to the evidence we have.
Agreed. It's all about finding common ground and moving forward with a solution that works for everyone. But of course, that's easier said than done.
Yeah, for sure. We'll just have to keep questioning, discussing, and learning as we go. What do you think, folks? Should we be more worried about global warming, or is this all just political posturing?
We'll leave that question for you to think about. Thanks for tuning in today, and we'll catch you next time on the podcast.
Music.